People who graduated with bad grades, where are you now? I'm an underground miner. The work is extremely physical in temperatures exceeding 32°C. But it allows someone like me to make $120K plus per year without education. So the old, "you're going to end up working in a goddamn mine if you don't pull these grades up," ended up coming true. But with an unexpectedly high compensation. I got a few A's in high school. Mostly B's and C's. A couple D's over the 4 years. And failed one class. I flunked out of university. I don't think I passed a single course in my last semester there. I lived in a couple shitty apartments. Worked in a couple shitty call centers. Drank shitty alcohol. And hung out with shitty people. The only positive thing in my life was my cat. Eventually I got tired of everything being shitty. I called up my parents and they agreed to let me move back into their place to go to college. I went back to school at 26. Graduated at 27 with A's. And got hired in my field before I technically finished my course. I'm 31 now. I live with my partner. We're getting married whenever we get around to it. We have 2 kids. And bought a house in 2018. My cat is no longer the only good thing in my life, though some days he's definitely my favorite child. Bad grades aren't really the thing that makes or breaks a life. It's the passivity, the lack of motivation, that causes those bad grades that'll give you a hard time later in life. The focus needs to be less on the letter on your report card and more on the skills you need to get there. If you fail 11th grade ancient history, it's not going to ruin your life. If you spend your days doing absolutely nothing and never develop the skills you need to get out of bed in the morning and go to school, work, you're going to be in for a rough time. In my career field, but in a dead-end position. I graduated college with a 2.34 GPA. That's pretty bad. I got a decent job and started a career path. Went back for a master's 15 years later and finished with a 4.0 in grad school. My jobs got progressively better and I'm doing pretty well now. 6-figure salary. Chief engineer of a hotel. 6-figure salary. My grades were barely passing. In fact, I wasn't going to graduate, but my math teacher said if I washed his boat he would pass me. I washed that boat sparkling clean. I graduated from college with a 2.13 cumulative GPA. My goal in college was just to get a degree. So I did. If that was all I wanted to do, so be it. That may be fine and I would never see any kind of karma for that. However, 10 years later, 2018, I decided I wanted to go back and get a master's degree to qualify me for a career change. I had a terrible time applying for grad school because a lot of them required a 3.0 undergrad cumulative GPA. I was denied time and time again. Finally, I wrote an appeal letter to the Dean of Admissions explaining why he should let me into his school. Reasons included things like the fact that my priorities have changed. I know I was a poor student then, but I am now paying my own way through grad school to provide for my family. Not the same person I was. Etc. They let me in. And I graduate in May with a 3.65 grad cumulative GPA. Couldn't be prouder. It's been a ton of work, but don't feel like being a bad undergrad or high school student should limit you. Decent grades in high school, less than a 3.0, barely skated by in college and was put on academic probation at one point and kicked out of my college for the degree I was wanting. Got back in by a miracle and graduated with a 2.5 GPA. Now, I work in IT and make a nice salary. Own a home, 2 cars, savings, retirement, investments, 529 for kid, etc. Married with a kid. We go on a nice vacation once a year. Overall good life. Bottom line, it's not the grades you make but the hands you shake. It's about interviewing skills, presenting yourself well, not only in an interview, but on your resume, keeping your ear to the ground for new opportunities, putting yourself in a position to succeed, and understanding that the industry constantly changing. Edit, just an FYI. I wish I would have screwed around a lot less my first couple years of college. It would have made my last year a lot less stressful. My story sounds good in hindsight, but there were many nervous "what am I going to do" nights. The kids that got good grades in my courses and who put in a lot of effort got their pick of jobs when graduating and are currently making way more than I am. They had options. They could negotiate a higher salary because of those options. I did not have options and had to take the first offer I was given. And negotiating my pay was not something I was in a position to do. Married with a kid. Is it even legal? This is why he should have gone for the good grades. Grammar lessons. I'm good. Married. House. 2 cars. Gainfully employed. Savings. Retirement. I dropped out of school pretty young. Technically I was still enrolled. I just didn't attend. Troubled home life and undiagnosed autism. I adored learning and would have been really happy to just be assigned a room and books so I could just learn in my own way without being overwhelmed by the noise and social elements of classroom learning. I always wanted to be a social scientist and had an innate fascination with the subject. At the time, autism in girls wasn't really a thing, so when I had panic attacks in class and begged to learn in a quiet space on my own, everyone just thought I was being difficult. My school had a really f'd up way of looking at things. The social aspect of school was considered so important that they's rather a kid just not attend school entirely than miss out of any of it. They didn't say that this is how they viewed it, but that was the outcome. Ultimately. So I slipped through the net like so many people with undiagnosed autism and basically didn't attend school from the ages of 13 to 16 save for an odd school meeting. But I kept pursuing education after school, with several more instances of dropping out, and found that college and eventually university were much more manageable. I graduated with a first-class Hans. Undergraduate degree and an Outstanding Achievement Award for attaining the highest grade on my degree. I'm now 29 and completing my Master's in Social Research at a London university and will be applying to PhD programs soon. Sometimes I get upset at all of the lost time. Maybe if I was diagnosed as a kid and accommodations were made, I'd be finishing up my PhD now. But on the other hand, I've been on a different kind of adventure and I've learned a lot about managing and enjoying life with autism. I'm probably more well-rounded now than I would have been if my life followed an arbitrary plan. And hey, turns out secondary school education isn't always destiny in the UK, so that's pretty cool. School was never my thing. Was always bored in class. Hated lectures. Was good with anything hands-on related, automotive, cosmetology, gym, and any labs in the sciences. I actually failed my religion class in grade 12. On purpose though. Overall grades were usually between D+ to B. Dropped out of college after finishing 1 semester. Started working full-time right away. Went between a few different jobs. Currently been with the same company for over 2 years. In the construction sector. I bought a condo by the age of 22. And 2 years later I'm still there. Happily living it up all by myself. I paid off my first car. And traded in that car for a brand new SUV. I also have a weekend job. Paid in cash. I make my own hours and can choose if I even want to go or not. It's great. This summer I'm taking a month off to travel with my best friend. I still have to save for it. But I'm not at all struggling to get by. Life is good. But I sure as hell got lucky with my situation. If it wasn't for who I know, then I'm sure I'd still be waiting tables. I was a below average student. Never really got anything higher than AC in most of the important classes. Looking back now, it's a miracle that I even graduated because I rarely did my homework. Went to a trade school right after HS. But not doing anything related to what I studied in trade school. Currently married. Working in IT. Remember, most people commenting here are the exception, not the rule. Pay attention in school and don't think that because a few Reddit users were able to make something out of themselves, that's how it'll be. I know quite a few people who were in a similar position in HS and still struggle to this day. Got a job right out of school. Working as an engineer. I've been at that same position since around 10 years. And my salary has increased to $36,000 per year in that time. I like to think that I'm fairly successful in my role here. My grades sucked because I was a Thai student. Not because I wasn't smart enough to do well. Didn't officially even graduate due to not being able to pass the math tax test, Texas exit testing. Ended up getting my diploma from a private school which had some weird loophole. Anyways, I make almost 6 figures now with a really good job which I have a love-hate relationship with. It's not about grades. It's about networking and who you know. I didn't spend a dime on college either. Working in a factory. President of the United States. Many people say you got the best grades. Better than anyone can imagine. Sir. I've always been incredibly lazy. Graduated high school in the bottom half of my class but got a 1540 on the SAT. Got a mechanical engineering degree from a top 25 engineering school but graduated with a 2.7 GPA, which made it as worthless as an online underwater basket weaving degree. Now I'm an industrial engineer and I'm good at it. Because helping other people be lazy and work smarter not harder is the goal of my job. I'm a professor actually. I was a C student all through high school and university. I dropped out and worked and traveled around for a while, trying to find what I wanted to do. When I went back for my B.A., I found a new love for learning. Went and did my master's and PhD soon after that and then landed a gig teaching a lot of kids that were like me and even more that were far better in school. Little do they know. Personally, I'm glad I was a crap student. It helps me empathize with a wide range of students and meet them where they are. Grades aren't intellect. They're a reflection of motivation. Perhaps. But not necessarily understanding. Creativity. Conceptualization or critical thought. Construction superintendent. Upper six figures. 9th grade education. Screw you, Mrs. McCurdy. Do you mean upper six figures as in close to 7 figures? I cheated my way through all 4 years of high school by abusing the system. I never cheated by plagiarizing or anything like that. I simply realized that the year was divided into 4 9-week segments. The first 3, if you did absolutely nothing, they would still give you a 40% average grade. The last 9 weeks you got nothing guaranteed. I also realized that you needed a combined 241% score to pass with AD average. My score allowed that for graduation. So throughout the year I would carefully plan which classes I would actually try on AMD, which I could get away with lazing off on. I inevitably graduated by doing just the bare minimum. The realization hit me though that all the work I was doing into carefully tracking my averages and grades was almost as much work as actually performing well in my classes. By the time I was ready to start college, I hadn't put any thought into what I wanted to do in life because I was so focused on cheating my high school and being lazy outside of school. The kicker was that my SAT scores were amazing, and combined with my extracurricular activities I was able to get a full ride for college. However, that abuse of the system didn't fly in university, so I actually had to try. But because I had gotten so used to not studying that I had problems trying to do it. I ended changing majors twice though college, and in the end didn't graduate due to unrelated circumstances. I was in a near-fatal accident that required a year of physical therapy and whatnot. The biggest problem is that I am by no means unintelligent. But my intelligence that people told me I had on school was just surface-level stuff. AMD Boney have no real talents in any field. Had I taken the time I'm schooled to fully try, I may have found something that I was remarkable in, but alas I didn't. However, 2 years ago I buckled down on learning the English language better and have taken a few online courses to help further myself. I actually have a job working as a script editor, AMD closed captioning coordinator for NBC, and am using my skills for that. I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful newborn daughter and am able to provide for them and keep a roof over our heads, AMD food in our stallmas, and even extras like nights out or vacations. But I often think about where I'd be if I had taken more time in high school. I always let it go because I worry I might not have met my wife and wouldn't have her or my daughter today, and I do not want to let go of my happiness that I have found. 2.6 GPA out of university. 4 years later working in supply chain management making 6 figures. I'm lucky because I enjoy what I do. Could have been much worse.